1,000 days. That's enough time to transform a company, but not enough time to waste. Welcome to the 1,000 Day CEO, the podcast about decisive leadership, sustainable growth, and building a business that thrives beyond any one leader. Your host is Bill Canady. Let's make every day count.
A few years ago, I sat in the back of a weekly operations meeting at a company doing about $400 million. The meeting was on the calendar for 45 minutes. There were 19 people in the room, and it ran an hour and 40. I counted the slides while this was happening, 61. And here's what I wrote in my notebook. Not one decision. Not one. There were updates, some of them genuinely interesting. There was an 11-minute section on a customer complaint from the previous Thursday. There was a debate about a forecast that two of the people arguing didn't own and couldn't change. And at about 50 minutes mark, someone said, we should probably take that offline. And I watched 11 people write that down. Afterwards, I asked the CEO one question. I asked him what number the company was chasing that quarter. He answered immediately. It was a good number. It's a clear one. He could have told it to me in his sleep. The guy knew what he was talking about. Then I asked him whether it had been on one slide in the meeting we had just sat through. He went back through the deck to check. It had not been on a slide in 5 weeks. 19 people, 100 minutes, 61 slides, every single week. Call it 30 person hours, and the number the entire company was being measured on had not come up since the second week of the quarter. Wow. That company didn't have a cadence. It had a standing appointment. Okay, here's the proof. A $400 million distributor put $12 million of EBITDA on the board in 6 months and redeployed $4 million of SG&A out of work that wasn't producing anything into work that was. The moves themselves were the ones you heard about all season. Price, mix, complexity. Nothing exotic. The standard stuff. Plain vanilla. The reason it held and the reason that it was still there 4 quarters later instead of quietly leaking back the way that these things usually do was the rhythm. Weekly, monthly, quarterly. And that rhythm cost the CEO roughly half a day of his week. I want to say that number early because it kills the only objection anybody ever raises. Half a day. 4 hours out of a 50-hour week. Somewhere around 8% of your calendar buys you a week, a monthly and a quarterly that between them govern the entire company. And you're already spending that half day. You're spending it in fragments, the interruptions, the escalations, the 41 decisions in 3 days we talked about last week. The cadence doesn't add time to your week. It consolidates your time you're already losing, and it converts it from reaction into governance. Now, here's my promise. By the end of the next half hour, you'll be able to build a 1-page scoreboard your weekly meeting runs on, and you'll be able to take any problem in your business and sort it in about 10 seconds into a meeting where it actually belongs. The second skill is worth more than it sounds like. Believe me, I know. If you can't sort it out, it gets a little harder. And here's the plan. 3 rhythms, weekly, monthly, quarterly. I'll tell you exactly what goes into each one, the 2 rules that make a monthly review worth having, and 4 rules that make anybody in the room worth listening to. And the 2 ways this whole system dies, and we don't want that to happen. Now, this is 1,000 Day CEO. I'm Bill Canady. Let's get into it. Okay, the Act 1. First, we're going to start with the problem. Let me draw this distinction that the whole episode runs on. Meetings fill a calendar. A cadence runs a company. A meeting is an event. It has a time, a room, and an invite list. Typically, too many people coming in. A cadence is a system. It has a fixed rhythm, a fixed audience, and a fixed artifact. And this is the part that almost everyone leaves out, a specific decision it is responsible for producing. If a reoccurring meeting on your calendar can't tell you what decision it exists to produce, it isn't part of a cadence. It's a habit with a conference line. And here's why this matters more in phase 3 than anywhere else in 1,000 days. Last week, I gave you the architecture. Direction, execution, and truth. Visionary, operator, and prophet. 3 roles, a bench behind them, 4 commandments holding the whole thing in place, and an org chart that is nothing more than a drawing. What makes it load-bearing is the rhythm. Structure tells people what they own. Cadence is what makes them own it on a Tuesday when nobody is watching. Which brings me to the sentence I'd put on the wall of every CEO's office I've ever sat in. The cadence is how the CEO takes charge without taking over. Let me say that again. The cadence is how the CEO takes charge without taking over. Think about what your alternatives actually are. If you don't have a cadence, you have exactly one management instrument, your personal attention. That's it. You find out what's happening by asking. You walk around, you talk to people. It helps. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. You correct things by intervening. You align people by being in the room. Personal attention is the most expensive tool ever invented, and it is the only one that doesn't scale. Only so many hours in a day. There's only one of you. It runs out at the edge of your calendar, and it produces a company where every person's most important skill is knowing how to get 20 minutes with you. Now let's talk about what this absence costs in days. Go back to the number from episode 1. Roughly 70% of CEOs in these seats get replaced during the hold, and it clusters hard between month 18 and month 24. I've told you that that's the moment the bill comes due for a year of expansion mistaken for growth. Here's the other half of it, and it's also a detection problem. The CEO who gets that call is almost never the CEO who solves the problem and failed to solve it. He's the CEO who saw the problem 2 quarters after it started. If it's your first real look at segment margin is the annual budget process, then a segment that has started deteriorating in March gets discovered in October. That's too late. And it gets a countermeasure in January. Holy cow, you're probably in trouble at that point. That's 10 months of drift on a clock that only has 33 months on it. Remember, we're doing this in 1,000 days. 87% of large companies hit a major stall. Under 10% fully recover. 10%, less than 10%. And the recoverable ones are recoverable because somebody caught them early. Not because somebody was smarter, because someone was looking at it on a schedule. That's what Cadence is buying you, not meetings, detection time, and a place to put a decision. One more thing before we build it, because I want to name the objection now than rather have you carry it all the way through the next 20 minutes. Every CEO I've ever taught this says the same version of, Bill, my calendar's already full. I don't have room for another meeting. Lord knows I don't have it. I'm sure you feel the same way. Well, you're not adding meetings with this. Most of you are going to end up with fewer meetings than you have now, and the ones you're going to keep are going to be shorter. What you're adding is a rule about what happens in them. Half a day a week, that's the whole price. Here's the framework. I call these 3 rhythms together the command center. Weekly, monthly, quarterly. 3 different jobs, and the most common mistake in the middle market is running all 3 of them badly at once in the same meeting every Monday. First, the weekly. It's 45 to 60 minutes. Leadership only, and I mean the people who own the number on the page, not the people who find it interesting, and everybody finds it interesting. 6 to 8 people, 10 is the ceiling, and 10 is already a compromise. So try to avoid it. Too many cooks in the kitchen. The artifact is 1 page, 5 to 10 numbers, not 50. I know it feels good when you put a lot down, not helpful. 4 buckets, orders, what came in, which is your leading indicator and the only one on the page that tells you about next month. Everything else looking in the rear mirror. Output, what went out the door, that's your throughput. Cash, collections, days sales outstanding, and inventory. And the quarter's priorities, 3 to 5 of them with a status. That's it. That's the page. Why 1 page? Because if it doesn't fit on 1 page, you haven't decided what really matters yet. And the meeting is going to do that, deciding live, badly, every week. And the same numbers every week, same orders, same format, same definitions. The comparability is the entire point. A leader should be able to look at that page for 8 seconds and know which line is wrong. It's a dashboard. It's supposed to tell you what's going on. 2 things happen in that hour, and only 2. Commitments get made out loud in front of peers, and blockers get surfaced and cleared in the room. Now the peer thing. I want to spend a minute on why that matters, because most CEOs collect commitments in one-on-ones and think they've done the same thing. Well, they haven't. A commitment made to the boss in a one-on-one is a negotiation between 2 people. It can be renegotiated privately later at no cost to anyone standing. And it usually is. You know the conversation. It's the one that starts with, hey, quick update on that date. The commitment made in front of 7 peers is a different object entirely. And the reason isn't shame. I'm not trying to build a room where people are afraid. The reason is that peers are the people who have to work around the mess. When the person who owns the operations commit to a ship date in front of the person who owns sales, who just told a customer that date, you have moved information to the exact place where it changes behavior. That's important. The renegotiation now has to happen in front of the person it costs, which is the only place a renegotiation should ever happen. Same with blockers. If a blocker crosses two functions, it gets resolved in the room by the two owners while you watch. Not after, not offline. The single biggest waste in a middle market company is two capable executives who think each other is the one who handling it, not them. Well, that generally means it's not happening. What the weekly is not is a status report. If you notice you're listening to updates, you're in the wrong meeting and it needs to end early. Ending early is allowed, These things don't have to go on if they're useless. Ending early is good. It teaches people that finished means finished. The monthly business review, 90 minutes to half a day. Now the full picture, the full P&L versus plan, margin by segment, not in total, because a total number hides every single thing you spent phase 2 learning. Pipeline and backlog, working capital, the receivables, inventory, and payables. You know the ones. 2 rules and only 2, and they're both non-negotiable. Rule number 1, owners present their own numbers. We're not delegating this. We need to know the person who owns it is saying it. That's how we know they own it. Not the CFO presenting on their behalf, not an analysis narrating a deck somebody else built. The person who owns the number says the number out loud with their name attached to it. Here's why. The moment finance presents someone else's number, that number becomes finance's problem. You will watch it happen in real time. The owner sits back physically in the chair, kind of seem relieved, to be honest. And there's a second benefit you get for free. You'll learn an enormous amount about a leader by watching where they know their own numbers cold or reading them for the first time in front of you. It does happen. They get behind. They don't get it done the night before. They're going to make it up in front of you. Rule number 2, variances get causes and countermeasures. Headwinds, timing, choppy, mixed, a little slower than we'd like. Every one of those words is a way of describing a number without explaining it. And a room that accepts them has stopped doing the work. They're just mailing it in. And the cause is a mechanism. We lost 2 accounts in the Northeast, both to price and both in quad 2, both to the same competitor. Now that's a cause. You can act on it. You can figure out what to do with that one. A countermeasure is a named action with an owner and a date, not we're watching it, not we're focused on it, a thing somebody is doing by the day. So pick a threshold, 2% or $50,000, whatever fits your business, and every variance past it gets 3 things: cause, countermeasure, owner, and date. 3 columns on a page. Hold that line for 2 months and the adjectives disappear from your company permanently. It'll feel great when you do it. And then close every monthly review the same way. Standing question, last item every time. What's most likely to surprise us in the next 90 days? Go around the room. Everybody answers. Nobody passes, including you. This is the only question in the entire system that is forward-looking and unstructured. And it's what converts no surprises from a value into a procedure. Write the answers down in the same document every month. Then here's the trick. In month 3, go back and read the months 1 and months 2. Because the second time an item appears on that list, it isn't a risk anymore. It's a forecast. And you now have 2 months of warning that you would not have had otherwise. For the price of 8 minutes at the end of a meeting. It's pretty powerful. Try it. You might be surprised. Then there's the quarterly reset, half a day or a full day. Completely different job, and this is not a bigger monthly. Each one of these meetings have a reason for existing, and they are not to be the same meeting. They got to be different. Every priority gets 1 of 3 verdicts. Kill it, keep it, or double down. Every single one. Continue is not a verdict. Continue is what happens when nobody makes a decision. And it's how a company ends up with 14 priorities. That's too many. The output is 3 to 5 ranked priorities, maximum 5, and ranked means ranked. If 2 of them collide on a Tuesday afternoon in a plant somewhere, everybody knows which ones wins without having to call you. Each one gets an owner, one name, and a measurable target. And then the part almost nobody does, an explicit stop doing list, written down, circulated, named items. Because capacity is finite. Every new priority you add without subtracting something is a promise you're making with money you don't have. And the organization knows it, which is why the fifth priority you announce gets a nod in the room and nothing at all on the money. They know you're bluffing. All right, focus is subtraction. Anybody can add. The quarter exists to subtract. The quarterly is where your profit earns the year. That kill list that we built last week with the products, those customers, the discounts, the processes, the data said costs more than they produce. This is where the meeting gets formally answered. They're not approved, they're answered. Somebody says yes or no with a reason in front of everyone. All right, the test here is which meeting does this belong in? Here's the sorting rule, and it takes about 10 seconds. If the answer to the problem is a countermeasure, work harder, work differently, it belongs in the MBR. Talk about it every month. We're looking backwards. If the answer is the problem is a different plan, a different segment, a different pricing architecture, a different allocation of people and money, it belongs in the QBR. It's a strategy question. QBRs are all about strategy. It's forward looking. Countermeasures to the monthly, strategy changes to the quarterly. That's it. That's the whole test. And by doing it quarterly, you don't get off the track as far. It's really powerful. Try it. And here's why the separation matters so much. You do not perform open heart surgery at every pulse, and you do not check the pulse only once a quarter. We look at it a lot. We want to look at it a lot. Companies that mix all of them fail in one of two directions. Either every monthly review turns into a strategy debate. Remember, I said these meetings had to be different, in which case nothing gets executed because the plan is under review 4 weeks out of 4. Or they never revisit strategy at all and they just grind a dead plan for a 4-year with excellent discipline. They're running fast to get nowhere. Practically, here's what this looks like on a Thursday. A debate starts in your monthly review and you can feel it turning. The conversation has stopped being about how to hit the number and start being about whether it's the right number. Name it out loud right there. That's a quarterly item. It goes onto the QBR agenda. Who owns bringing the analysis? 30 seconds and you just saved 40 minutes and got your monthly MBR back. The 4 B's, my favorite. Every one of these meetings runs in the same in-meeting standard. 4 rules, I call them the 4 B's, and I teach them explicitly because nobody absorbs them by osmosis. You can lay your head on that pillow all you want, still not going to come in. First is be brief. 1 story, 1 message, 1 key takeaway. 1 minute per slide. So if you brought 12 slides, you have 12 minutes. And if you almost certainly have brought 6. And the line that settles every argument about this, if you can't explain it in 60 seconds, you didn't understand it. As Mark Twain said, if I had more time, I'd have made it shorter. So make it shorter. Do your work before you get there. Second, be brilliant. Deliver insight, not data. Data is what happened. Insight is why it happened and what it means for the decision in setting in front of this room. Anybody can read a chart out loud. Anybody can read the newspaper. The question you're being paid to answer is, what does that number mean that we really didn't know, and what should we do about it? Be critical. No happy talk. I want to say this one carefully because people hear it as pessimism or permission to be negative. It isn't. Leaders don't trust perfect stories. They trust prepared ones. A presentation with no risk in it doesn't make me confident. It makes me start looking for what's missing. So bring the risk and always pair it with a countermeasure. A risk with no countermeasure is just a complaint. A countermeasure with no risk is a sales pitch. Bring both. This is a ratio. Think about it that way. Do it every time. Be gone. Once you've made your point, stop talking. Executives respect people who respect their time. The most underrated move in any review is finishing in 7 minutes when you were given 15 and sitting down. Lord, we love that, right? Let's get done with it. Let's get back to our job. Our jobs are not to hold meetings. Our job is to serve our customers, take care of our employees, provide exceptional opportunities, be good partners. Meetings are just how we keep alive. The 70-30 calendar rule. The cadence governs the company. This one governs you. Schedule 70% of your week, leave 30% genuinely empty. Not soft book, not I'll work on strategy, empty. Here's the logic. The unscheduled is not an exception. It's a constant. Every week there is a customer blow up, a sponsor call, a resignation you didn't see coming, a plan issue. You don't know which one, but you know the volume and it's remarkably stable. If your week is 90% booked, that unscheduled 30% has to eat something, and it always eats the same thing, the cadence. Because the cadence is the only item on your calendar that doesn't call you and complain when you move it. The customer complains, the sponsor complains, the weekly ops meetings just goes quietly, gets pushed to Thursday. Hold the line on the 70 and the unscheduled fits, lose the line on the rhythm breaks within a quarter. Practically, today, put the weekly, the monthly, and the quarterly on the calendar as recurring items for the next 4 quarters, all of them, and then treat them as the last thing you move, not the first. These are the big rocks. Schedule them out. I like to put mine out for 18 months. People know when they can take vacations, they can have time off. Don't reschedule these meetings. If someone can't make it, tell them to send a proxy. There's the adoption test. How do you know it's installed? Not by whether the meetings are happening. Meetings happen in dead companies every day. You know the cadence is installed when people other than you begin enforcing it. Then the tell is specific, and when you hear it, you should stop and enjoy it for just a second. A middle manager's 2 level down says to a colleague, well, that's a no surprises issue. We need to escalate this. No surprises. Fish, relatives, and bad news all stink after 3 days. Let's not let it happen. Nobody told him to say that. Nobody sent a memo. That's your language operating as a system in a room you're not in about a problem you haven't heard about yet, which is precisely the point because you're about to hear about it early. That takes roughly 2 to 3 months of constant reinforcement. And I want to be careful with that word. Not constant scheduling, constant enforcement. Meaning you start on time, you end on time. You send back a variance that shows up with an objective attached. And you don't let the weekly get moved for a customer visit, even a good customer. Not even once, because the first exception is the whole negotiation. Remember, if you can't be there, send a proxy, but make sure you're there. 10 to 12 weeks of that and it stops being yours and it becomes theirs. Fair warning, the first month will feel worse than what you had. I don't know why, but it's always we get worse before we get better. Embrace the J curve. People will be visibly uncomfortable presenting their own numbers. The scoreboard will be wrong at least twice, and somebody will use that as an argument for going back. Keep going. Being wrong on every page every Monday is how a number gets clean. Remember, progress, not perfection. 3 moves. 3. The first one takes an afternoon. Move 1, build the 1-page scoreboard. Second, 5 to 10 numbers and no more. 3 rules. Every number has exactly one owner, a name, not a department. Every number is available by Monday morning without a special request. And it covers the 4 buckets: orders, output, cash, and the quarter's priorities. The second rule is the one that gets skipped, and it's the most important. If you can't get a number by Monday without somebody building a report, either fix the reporting or take the number off the page. A perfect number that arrives on Thursday is worth less than a good number that arrives on Monday because Thursday is too late to do anything about the week. Progress over perfection. And the hard part is subtraction. Every time, everybody's first draft is 22 numbers because every number has somebody in the building who loves it. Cut it to 10 with one question. Ask if each line, if this number moved 3 points and nothing else did, would I do anything different on Monday? If the answer is no, it's a report. It's not a scoreboard. Move 2. Install the standing MBR closing question this month. Let them last item on the agenda every month. What's most likely to surprise us in the next 90 days? Around the room, everybody answers, nobody passes, and your answer too. You go last. You always go last. That's what it means to be the boss. You go first, they'll disagree with you. And you answer honestly because whatever level of candor you model in the ceiling for everyone else. Same document every month, and put a reminder in your own calendar for 90 days from now to go back and read the first 3. This costs you 8 minutes a month. I've never seen a cheaper early warning system, and I've watched it catch a customer loss, a covenant problem, and a resignation, each about a quarter before they would have otherwise shown up. Move 3. Audit your last 3 quarters of priorities and count the kills. Pull them all up. Every priority you set in the last 3 quarters. Count how many were formally killed. And be strict about what you count. Quietly abandoned doesn't count. Nobody worked on it since March. Doesn't count. Killed means naming in a meeting, deciding and communicating it to people who were working on it. If the answer is 0, you don't have a QBR. You have a status meeting. And here's what 0 means in practice. 3 quarters at 4 or 5 priorities each, nothing ever killed, is about 14 live priorities in the building right now. 14 is the same as none and the same as 25 initiatives from episode 2. Your people are already choosing which ones are real. You just don't know which one they chose. The 2 ways this dies, 2 failure modes. Both have a specific tell, and you can check for both this week. Cadence sprawl, the meetings multiply. It starts reasonably. Somebody says, we should probably have marketing in here. And they're right. And then the meeting goes from 45 minutes to 90 minutes because there's now 14 people who each need 3 minutes. Then a subcommittee appears to handle what the weekly cannot get to. And then I have genuinely seen this, a pre-meeting to prepare for the weekly. So we got meetings for the meetings. The tell, count the people in the room who don't own the number on the page. If more than one, you have sprawl. Second tell, the meeting can never end early, and the meeting that cannot end early isn't a meeting. It's a container, and a container will fill. The fix is a hard reset, not a trim. Back to the owners, back to 60 minutes at the end of the first 20 minutes, early on purpose. The Cadence Theater, the meetings happen right on schedule and nothing is decided. The deck gets prettier every month and the numbers don't move. The tell, read last minute's minutes and count with the decisions. Then check how many of them changed what anybody did. A simpler version, if your deck is longer than a quarter than it was last quarter, the EBITDA isn't. You have theater. The second tell is adjectives. When variances come back as softness and timing and nobody in the room asks follow-up questions, the meeting has become a performance of accountability instead of the thing itself. To fix it is to kill something, one real thing in the next quarterly, publicly, when the reason is stated. Nothing converts theater into cadence faster than being the first room to watch a priority actually die. When it's working, it's boring. Same page, same faces, same 8 seconds of scanning the line, that's what's wrong. Causes and countermeasures instead of adjectives. Nobody surprised in a board meeting, ever. Your best month is going to feel like nothing happened. Boring compounds, exciting is what you do instead of the work. 3 things that are worth keeping. Number 1, meetings fill a calendar. Cadence runs a company. Weekly, monthly, quarterly. The 1-page scoreboard, a real financial review, and a quarterly to actually kill things. Roughly half a day of your week, which you're already spending in fragments at a much worse exchange rate. 2, countermeasures to the monthly. Strategy change to quarterly. You don't need to perform open heart surgery at every pulse. You do not check the pulse only once a quarter. Sort every problem in 10 seconds, and you get your monthly review back. 3, you'll know install when somebody else enforces it. 2 or 3 months of holding the line, starting on time, ending on time, sending back the adjectives, never moving the weekly. Then a middle manager you barely met says, that's a no surprises issue, and the system is theirs. Last week, I told you the goal of phase 3 is to become the least necessary person in the room on purpose. This is how you do it, not by caring less, not by stepping back, by putting the company on a rhythm that produces decisions, whether you're in the room or not, and whether you're feeling energetic this week or not. That's the whole idea in the title. The cadence is how a CEO takes charge without taking over. And it comes back to the line I've used all season. Luck is the residue of design. Cadence is where the design actually gets done. 45 minutes at a time on a Monday with the same 8 people in the same 1 page for about 100 weeks. Nobody writes a magazine story about that. It just quietly decides how much your company is worth. Next week is the last one, and it's the one everything else has been building towards. Day 731 to the 1,000, always be exiting. Abe. Enterprise value is EBITDA times the multiple, and almost every operator alive works the first term and leaves the second one to fate. I'll give you 4 levers in the order to pull them in, and why de-risking the business is actually what re-rates the multiple, which is why you can't spread it in the last 90 days, no matter how good your banker is. And I'll tell you the most expensive sentence I hear from CEOs in year 3, which is the same version of "this company is my baby." It isn't, and make peace with that early because it's worth real money. If you want to get these and other templates, be sure to check out the 80/20 Institute. All this stuff's in there and it's available to you. There's no pitch in it. It's just available. I'm Bill Canady. I'll see you in the next 100 days.
You've been listening to the 1000 Day CEO with Bill Canady. Follow the show for more decisive leadership, sustainable growth, and strategies that build enduring businesses. Until next time, make every day count.